This is Keith Haney, host of Film Session with Haney and DeWitz. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
I'm the Greg.
And I am Dave Show.
We host the Greg and Dave Show on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out our show, The Greg and Dave Show, where we talk about strange, bizarre, and sometimes just downright quirky news stories that you may not have heard about.
A new show comes out every Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. And hey, thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome to How to Write Good. I am your host, Daniel Poppie. You can find out more about me, because I know that you're interested for whatever godforsaken reason. You can find out more about me at danielpoppie.com. Poppie is spelled P-O-P-P-I-E. You should know this by now. And Daniel, if you can't spell it, you need to, I don't know what you need to do. You need to do something. I'm not going to tell you what it is because you need to learn how to spell it yourself. Maybe someday, when it's up to like 100 episodes, I'll tell you how to spell Daniel, and I'll tell you the trick for remembering how to spell those old Jewish names, because Daniel is a Jewish name. So, if you do like How to Write Good, there is a Facebook page. You can type in How to Write Good, and you'll be cringing, and you'll be like, "Oh, I'm not using correct grammar. It should be How to Write Well." You'll be cringing because you won't be using correct grammar, and you'll be putting it in there, and you'll hit the like button, and it's great. If you like How to Write Good, please like and share the posts, the episodes, different things from How to Write Good, because that's really helpful for people putting content out. I've never realized that before starting something like this or anything where you're trying to get the word out about something, how important it is for people to like and share things. And I used to just be like, well, I'm just going to like and share because if I like something a lot, I'll just like it. And if I support something that someone does, so if I like a band, or if I like an art piece, or if I like a movie, and it's indie, it's on a smaller scale like this podcast is, and usually it's the case that it's an indie band that would be in this category. I never thought to say, like, share this stuff because I didn't realize it helped so much. So if you do like this podcast, share it. Share it if you like it that much, and like it. Even if you like it, it's helpful because of Facebook algorithms. It's just the way it is. I'm just going to say it up front. It is self-serving, but it's just how it is. And if you like other stuff too, like and share that stuff as well. I'm not gonna lie that I don't want to get the message out about my podcast because it's my podcast. Because who doesn't want the thing that they're working on to do well? So I'm going to say that, and I'm going to say why I'm doing it, because why not? Also, if you like the show or don't like the show, check out Public House Media. Public House Media is the media company that puts out this podcast, and they are a smaller project. I don't have the word right now because I'm tired. They have a smaller project right now. They are a smaller media company that's just getting started. And if you enjoy this, or if you don't enjoy this, check them out because they have other podcasts. If you've heard this, if this is your first time on this podcast, and you're just like, man, I don't like this guy. Well, good, because I'm the only person who does a podcast like this that I know of, where I'm just, I care about what I'm doing, but I try to bring some levity to it. I'm trying not to be so serious. So if you think he's way too not serious, I don't know the opposite of that right now. I'm just I've got this really bad headache, and I'm really tired, and I feel like I'm getting sick. It's one of those days, and I'm just pushing through. And so there I am. But if you do, check them out. They've got a lot of podcasts, as I said. So welcome back. It is halfway through the week. It is Wednesday, and it's halfway over. This is week 5, and like I said, I'm extremely tired. I've got a horrible headache, and I'm in a mode. There are 3 different modes for me, and I'm probably going to flip on this. So I'll be saying this now, and in a month, I'll be like, no, that's not true. There's more than that, or whatever. So the first mode is where I have like multiple things going on in my mind. It's really hard to concentrate on stuff. This is like the anxiety mode. So you're worried about something and you're trying to concentrate on one thing, but you can't concentrate on that one thing because you've got 4 other things going on in your brain, at least, or something like that. The other mode is the idea of flow. And I think I've talked about this before. And flow is this idea where you are focused on something and you're good at it, and you're just getting into the zone where you can do tons and tons of stuff. So the first one is where I'm kind of scatterbrained. I've got multiple things going on in my mind. And the second one is where I'm just like focused on something. I can do it for hours. So the guy who actually, the theorist behind the idea of flow, his name, and I hope I get this right, it's Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. I believe that's how you say his name. And it's his last name is pretty much all syllables. It's got like three different vowels in his last name. See, I'm so tired I can't even remember the word vowels. So right now, the last thinking pattern I'm in, I don't even know what I was calling it before, I'm so tired, is right now where I'm so tired I can only think about one thing, and I have a little bit of a hard time going through the process of thinking what something is. So that's where I am now, and it'll be a good show because I will not be talking too fast. I'm probably talking too fast already, but I will not be talking as fast because I can't. And I will be going through stuff at a little slower pace, but I don't have that flow going on. Like I said, I've got a raging headache. It's ripping my head apart. But you don't need to know about that, so don't tell me about it. So the word of the week, and this is another reason why I love the English language. This is another reason why I love language in general. The word of the week is auscultation, and it is extremely specific in its meaning. It means listening to sounds within the body with a stethoscope. Auscultation, people. All right. There are only a few situations. There's probably only a few situations where you actually can use this word, but you can't even use this word in situations where you're using a stethoscope to listen to something that's not a body. It has to be a body. The definition is so precise that it must be a body. So I thought I'd share that with you because it's good to know what listening to sounds with a stethoscope within the body with a stethoscope is, because you might need to use that word in your life. It's not a very fun word to say. It's just really bizarre that there's a word for that. So we are going to jump over to our accidental essence, and the name of this week's show is I Themed a Theme. And I hope that you got that reference. If you didn't get that reference, you need to watch more stage plays or watch more musicals because you're missing out. You're missing out. Maybe you hate stage plays and maybe you hate musicals, and I say you're a Philistine. So this week we're talking about theme if you didn't get that from the title of the show. This week we're talking about theme. What am I talking about? You get that from the title of the show, and you get that from the show's description. Some week I should just have a mystery show where you have no idea what I'm going to talk about, and I should just screech into the microphone. So, and then everybody who listens to the show will be like, this is a joke, I'm never going to listen to the show again, so maybe that's not a good idea. The reason why I am talking about theme this week is because I think that it's something that needs to be defined or redefined, I guess. There needs to be a group of people who come together who are in the literary world who say this is what theme is, because there's no central definition of what theme is. In the musical world and in art, theme is more well defined. So in the musical world, a theme is a repeated phrase in a music, and maybe I'm missing something along with that, but it's something repeated in the music. And I would also say that in art, they have the motif. The motif in art is something repeated, but I'd also say that's a theme in art. With traditional art, like paintings and sculptures and different things like that, people also may say that there's a theme similar to the theme in literature, but I think that's ridiculous, and you shouldn't talk about it that way. So, yeah, I'm not gonna go into that. I would say that the theme in music, the way they use the word theme in music is the best, and then in art, I also think they use that sometimes as well. But in literature, with stories specifically, I hate it when people try to analyze stories, and I guess I'm kind of doing that now. So I'm a little bit of a hypocrite, but I'm doing that in a way, analyzing stories as a big picture rather than analyzing individual stories. And maybe this is where this is coming from. So I may be very biased as it comes to the ideas related to stories, specifically like theme, or saying, oh, what's the idea we can get out of this story? Okay, I'm going to get back to what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of different ways people define theme in terms of literature. I'm going to go through a few of them, and I am reading stuff off right now. I'm going to try to not sound like I'm reading stuff off, but I am. So Why am I even telling you that? So theme, these are the different things that I found that people define theme as. And they're different. There's a lot of different ones. So the central topic or idea, or topics or ideas. So the central topic or idea of a story. What readers think the story is about. That's another one. What the work says about a subject. So what the opinion expressed about the subject matter of the story. A message or moral, meaning behind or revealed by a story, a declaration of the human condition. So these were all different things. I really just did a quick Google search because I don't need to know what all the scholars think about theme. I need to know about what the layman thinks about theme. The layman thinks about theme. And these are the different things that the layman thinks about theme, and they're all different. Along with this, there are also explanations of what you look at or ways to that theme can be expressed. So theme can just be an underlying meaning. Theme can be an abstraction of something, like a conceptual thing. Theme can be expressed through universal statements. Some people think that theme should be stated in one word, and there's other people who think that it should be stated only as a claim. Also, there was one article that I read that broke up theme into major and minor themes. So, as you can see, some of these are contradictory in nature. So, if a theme if it should be only one word, it can also be a claim, or so on and so forth. Some would argue against me. I think that there's going to be some people listening to this podcast who say, well, like theme, the reason why that there's so many different definitions to theme is because theme is complex, and theme can come out in a book in a lot of different ways. But what I say to that is that if you say, oh, theme is a central idea or topic, theme is what the readers think, theme is the opinion expressed about the subject matter, theme is the message or moral, theme is the meaning behind the story or the declaration of the human condition. I say that all those things are different, and we can actually separate those things out. We can actually say, oh, what is the central topic or idea of the story? Or we could say, what do the readers think about the story? We don't need to use theme because it's so ambiguous that it's hard to, like, if I have a conversation with you about theme and I mean the meaning, the message or moral, and you mean a declaration of the human condition, we are not talking about the same thing, but we're using the same word, and there's a problem there. And I do not see why we can't just the human spirit, or we can say, what is the topic? What does the reader think? What is the interpretation of the reader, or one of these different areas? If we have so many different definitions of theme and we accept them all, theme really doesn't mean anything, and it's a really, really confusing concept in the literary world. There are likely to be other concepts in the literary world that are confusing, and they have a lot of different definitions, but I haven't run into them yet. Maybe I have, but I can't remember because I am really tired. Maybe I have run into them, but I'm just so stinking tired, I just don't know. But theme is one of those that I keep on running into and I keep on seeing, and I just saw it today. That's why I did this. I'm doing this today. I just saw a teacher teaching theme today, and I guess it was an all right way to portray theme. It's probably the best way out of all of them. But at the same time, I was thinking, like, you really can't explain theme. I don't feel like any teachers I've run into can explain theme well because there's so many definitions and they themselves are confused. So there's a problem. There's a problem with having so many definitions, and there's a problem with this idea of theme. We actually need to know what we're talking about, and we don't know what we're talking about in this case. So it kind of reminds me of logic, going back to logic. With logic, the first step in logic is we are defining the thing we are talking about. We cannot talk about theme. We can't begin to think about theme unless we start with actually defining what theme is. So we are going back to that first step of logic. Side note here. I was just thinking about this today, and I was thinking about my episode on logic, and I was just thinking, oh, I had a logical fallacy in my episode on logic, and I feel I'm not really embarrassed about it because I caught it. The logical fallacy was appeal to authority, because in my episode on logic, I was saying how, I didn't just make this up. Over the years, people have made this method of logic up, and they've defended it, and they've done different things with it, and they've made it it's gone through rigorous testing through these great minds in history. But what I was doing actually was appealing to the authority of these great minds in history. So within my logic episode, I actually had a logical fallacy, but that's okay because I caught the logical fallacy. I'm telling it to you now because I want to be logically consistent in what I say. Now, that doesn't mean I won't change my opinion on something, but if I do, I'll try to catch it. If at a certain point there will be too many episodes that I have, and speaking is really fast. You can say a lot of things in a really short time. Writing takes a lot longer, and when I'm writing, I go over it again and again and again so I know what I write. But with speaking, you may misspeak or you may not remember everything, but I do allow myself to change my opinion on things, but I don't allow myself to be not logically consistent, especially if I'm talking about the same thing. So feel free to call me on it if I'm not, and I'll try to correct that and point it out, because I have those logical fallacies at the end of each episode because I want to learn the logical fallacies too. I want to be a better thinker, and I caught myself in a logical fallacy, and the reason I did was because I was going through the logical fallacies and I was thinking about logical fallacies. So I guess it is helping me at least. So we are going back to theme. And as I was saying about theme, we need to define theme. We have to have a clear, accepted definition of what theme is so we actually can talk about it. And we can't have this definition have tons and tons and tons of different definitions within it. It has to have one central definition, and we can have sub things under it. We can explain it underneath the definition, but we need to have this category we fit theme into, and we don't have a category to fit theme into yet. I have a category. I have a specific definition for a theme, but first I want to complain about schools. I want to complain about school because it's always a good thing to complain about school, especially when you're going to school to be a teacher, because how hypocritical can you be in one day, right? First I had a logical fallacy, now I'm complaining about school. So my complaint about literature classes, specifically English classes, is why they teach theme in school. Why do they teach theme in school? There are a limited number of resources in each school. There's a limited amount of time. Teaching theme doesn't really do anything for the kids. Younger kids don't really understand theme as it's taught. From my perspective, I run into a lot of kids. I've tried teaching theme to younger kids, like kids in 5th grade. They don't get it. It just doesn't. I think it's because it's too broad, frankly. I think because it is too broad, it's not a precise definition that younger kids can't grasp it because they do not realize there's tons of stuff that people are talking about with theme. It is not a good tool for developing thinking. That's my second reason why it doesn't help kids. And I don't think it's a good tool for developing thinking, specifically because it's too broad. So that goes along with it, because if you don't actually know what you're thinking about, you can't practice thinking using that thing you're trying to think about. Teachers don't even agree on what theme is. I've run into multiple teachers. I've run into articles that teachers write and different teachers talking, and they don't even agree on what theme is. So how are we supposed to teach the kids, or how are teachers supposed to teach the kids if the teachers don't even know what theme is in the first place? So, and besides that, we need to teach things. Because we have a limited amount of resources, a limited amount of time, we need to teach things that will help the students develop intellectually as much as possible. And I don't think teaching theme does. I think it just confuses kids, and I think it frustrates kids, especially the younger kids. Maybe older kids would get it. I think older kids would understand, and they realize that theme isn't really hammered down, and they're able to trudge through what we see as theme, what teachers see as theme, and what society sees as theme. But I don't think that they completely understand it, because we don't completely understand it. Now, someone may say, what about art? Should we get rid of art? Should we get rid of music? because if I'm saying we have a limited amount of resources, we have a limited amount of time, we should teach things that help the students develop. I believe that art and music help students develop. I believe that singing helps students develop because art and music are a lot different as well. So art and music are very structured. They have rules that go along with them. Now, there's a lot of art out today I don't like because I think that there's been a shift in the mood towards art these days where it just pretty much says anything is art. I don't agree with that. There's reasons why I don't agree with it. I think that art should have standards. But when you go through school and you go and you actually have an art teacher who is a good art teacher, they teach you concepts about art that are very well defined. It's not just art teachers who are good art teachers are not just making stuff up. They're not just throwing stuff together and being like, we're making paper mache heads today. If they're a good art teacher, they're teaching you about design concepts and different things like that. And I do not see how you can argue that music as it is taught in American schools, or I guess Western, any schools really, does not have clear rules. If you go to school for music, there are tons and tons and tons of things you learn about what you're supposed to do in music and what you can't do in music. Of course, you can always break those rules, but there's a really well-defined structure of musical education. It's not just this and that. The theme also, those are whole subjects, and theme is a tiny little part of one subject. I don't want to throw away all of literature. I think it's valuable. I think reading is valuable. I think reading things like stories are valuable even. That's a different podcast episode altogether. I think writing is extremely valuable, but this is a tiny little thing that we have in literature that it's just tiny, and we don't define it. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense to have it there as long as we don't have a clear definition and we really don't know what we're talking about. Because I really don't think that I think that literature teachers, I think that English teachers do have an idea of what they believe theme to be. But as a whole, like the big group, there's nothing bringing it all together. If you take 100 teachers and you told them to define what theme is, I bet you that almost all of them would have something different, or there would be variations. There needs to be something central that brings it together. Otherwise, I just think that we should get rid of it. So, while we're talking about this, I think, as I said before, that we need to have a different definition of theme. Now, the first definition is not my definition, and the second definition is my definition, but it's stolen from somewhere else. The first definition that we should have, if we have a theme, is what the author says about a specific topic. So, which is what theme is trying to get at. All these different areas of theme, that's what teachers are trying to get at. That's what kids are trying to get at. I think that hopefully there's a shift towards this in schools. I don't think that my definition is going to catch on because it's not complex enough, but I think I like it better because, of course, it's mine. I like it better because it's my idea. But so again, I'm going to just say that what the author says about a specific topic, okay? That could cover a lot of areas. It's very clear. It's very concise. It's very precise. I don't know if saying those two words together is redundant. The second definition, I think we should just do away with that first one, really. I mean, if we're going to adopt anything besides mine, we should adopt that first one, but we should just get rid of it because who cares? And we should really adopt music's idea of theme. I think that people in literature should look to music and be like, music has a really good concept of theme in their work, and it also fits into literature, and it makes a lot more sense to me because we have to have, I think that this aspect of theme needs to exist in books for it to actually be theme, and that's why I say that this is what theme is, or what we should define theme as. Something repeated in a literary work. Okay, now we can expand this a little more, and we could say this is something repeated in the storytelling of a literary work. But I don't really think we even need that. I think we can just have something repeated in a literary work, and we can say it can't be like letters because we're going to have the letter E repeated, and we could say, oh, the letter E is a theme. It would have to be either within how it's written, so the actual way it's written, or in the storytelling itself, or in the concepts that are presented, or in different areas like that. You see how that's a very quick way to say theme. And any kid can catch on to that. They're like, oh, I see that the color red is repeated in this picture book again and again. I wonder if that has to do with theme. Now, the author may have just liked red, but the author may have also put that in because he wanted to have a conceptual idea that was connected to red that ran through the entire book. In the same way, there are other books that you could point to. You could point to such things as Harry Potter, because it's so big. I'm using Harry Potter because it's so huge. It's one of the biggest books in modern existence. And in Harry Potter, there's always a story about good and evil, and it always comes back to good and evil. That is one theme in Harry Potter, and it keeps on repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating every single book. Another thing in Harry Potter that keeps on coming back is this idea that he keeps on getting older. He's growing up. It's a coming of age story. It's a very, very, very long coming of age story. It's a 8-book long coming of age story. That's what Harry Potter is. But that's another theme. He is getting older. He is coming of age. And we can if we have this definition of theme, we can talk about it as one word, or we can expand it and we can say, what does the author think about coming of age? What does the author think about good and evil if these things keep on coming up? But I think it's better than what we have now because it's more precise. And it's really easier to find for the reader. I'm not a person who likes books that are that are considered elite. Like, people read them, they're like, I'm an elite because I read this book. I really like books that regular people can read. For me, when I write, I try my best. Maybe I'm not good at it at all, but I try my best at writing things that people actually want to read, like they actually enjoy. And the biggest praise I could probably get from someone for a book I write is if I got to the end and they're just like, that was really cool. Like, because they just enjoyed it a lot. They didn't think it was this high literary work. They didn't feel like they were talked down to. They're just like, yeah, that was really cool. I really had fun reading that book, because books really, in the end, books are really entertainment. Give me a break. Books are entertainment. They do have an effect on culture. They do have an effect on how we think about things, but people come to books for entertainment. They come to get away from the world, I believe, to fiction. And why do I need to condescend? Like, why do I need to make people feel like I'm condescending to them when I write? I'd rather just write something that I enjoy and they enjoy, and we both can say that was cool at the end. So, we are going to be done with talking about theme. You can totally disagree with me on theme. This is my idea. I'm probably the only person on the planet who thinks this way. There's probably a few others, like 3. But I've thought about this I think I've had this idea of theme for a while now, probably since, I don't know, I have a friend who was a music major in college, and when I started learning more about different types of art, my views on literature started shifting and I started forming more. I've always been kind of the person who's like, I don't agree with that. I've always been the person in literature classes who've been like, I don't agree that the walls that are red mean that a person is angry. I've always been that person. I'm like, prove that this is the case. The author didn't explicitly state it, so how do you really know? So, but I think my definition is better. But we are going to jump over to the logical fallacy of the week so that we don't commit logical fallacies when we're talking about logic anymore, right? So our logical fallacy of the week, this is a funny one too. I run into things in life and I think that they're just humorous because of how they're done. And I'm just like, yeah, whoever was making this up was just laughing when they did it. And I think that the person who made up this logical fallacy, the person who was thinking about it and is like, this is a logical fallacy, they had a little chuckle when they did it. So this is argument from fallacy. That's what it's called. And it also is known as the fallacy. And what it is you assume if an argument for a conclusion is fallacious or contains a fallacy, that the argument is not true, or the claim is the conclusion of the argument is not true. I'll read that again because I have mush mouth. The argument from fallacy assumes if an argument for a conclusion is fallacious or contains a fallacy, the conclusion of the argument is not true. So just because there is an argument that you hear and the argument has a fallacy in it does not mean what the conclusion the person draws, the end result, is untrue. Okay? So I always go back to my favorite. So and because it's the easiest to go back to. That's why. And I'm very tired this week, so I have to go back to the easiest thing possible. It's the idea of God. So it's like, if someone is arguing and they say, we had the argument, last week we had the argument from ignorance, I believe. And last week it was, the argument from ignorance is you cannot prove that God does not exist, therefore God exists. Okay, that is an argument with a fallacy in it. But it does not necessarily mean that the claim that God exists, that conclusion that God exists, is untrue. Vice versa. In the other way, the argument from ignorance is that you cannot prove that God exists, therefore God does not exist. That is a fallacy within the argument. It doesn't mean that the conclusion God does not exist is not true. Okay, so there is another one. Just because you're running into people who do not know how to think doesn't mean what they're saying in the end is untrue. That is all I have for the logical fallacy of the week for you. I hope it helps you in your thinking, because they have been helping me in my thinking. So I think that if they're beneficial to me, I don't often think this, but I'm going to try to change my thinking. If a thought I have is beneficial to me, perhaps it's beneficial. It's likely that it's beneficial to someone else. So that is the end of this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that it completely changed your life. At the very least, I hope that it helped you with your thinking. This podcast, as I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, is put up on Public House Media. So if you enjoy this podcast, please like Public House Media on Facebook. Check out their other stuff. You can also find them at phmedia.com. There, I think that if you check out PH Media, it's easier to navigate than Facebook, but Facebook has the newest stuff coming through the news feed. If you enjoy the show, please like it on Facebook at How to Write Good. And if you do enjoy this episode, please share this episode and like it on Facebook, because that is something that is going to help this episode, more people to find this episode, and for this podcast to grow, because there's definitely people who enjoy this type of thinking about writing and literature and different things like that. I'm not the only one, I hope, but then they'll be able to find it, because like I said at the very first episode, this is the only I looked around beforehand. I couldn't find any other ones, and that's why you're stuck with me. And I am Daniel Poppie. I hope you have a good rest of your week, and join me next week on How to Write Good.